You're listening to the ReachCast show, your weekly stop for the latest and greatest in the PlanetSide 2 universe and its community.
Welcome, everyone. It is April 23rd, and you are listening to episode 82 of the ReachCast show, proud members of the AGN and podcast networks. I am your host, Deringer. This is going to be a Deringer solo podcast. Unfortunately, your regular host, Torkz, is preoccupied with T-Ray and Community Clash, and your other host, Noxx, is preoccupied with the NHL playoffs right now. So, again, this is going to be a Deringer solo. So, this week we are brought to you by Playoff Hockey, the only playoffs worth watching in April, and also by great listeners like you via the Support the Show tab on ReachCastShow.com. So, what do we have in store for tonight's show? Well, first off, carbines, straight pulls, and last but not least, dying servers. So with that, let's move on to patch notes.
I'm going to get these mosquitoes in the air and rain down some hellfires on those fools. Oh no! What the fuck? I should have listened to the ReachCast patch notes.
All right, this evening, first we're going to start off with the April 16th patch. First up, 64-bit client. As we know, the 64-bit client is back in the game, and it should be fixing the reduction in client crashes, but they do know that they still have more to fix, and of course, after this was posted, we do know that they took the 64-bit client back offline, so maybe the 64-bit client technically is not really fixed and may still require some additional changes, etc. to it. Also, the biggest change on April 16th, they added some new carbines, whichever you want to say it. The NC got the AF4A Bandit, which is quote-unquote designed with mobility in mind, lightweight alloys, faster movement while aiming without compromising on stopping power in close to medium ranges. Next up, the Terran Republic got the HC1 Cougar, quote-unquote utilizing a higher caliber cartridge than its LC cousins. The Cougar possesses unparalleled stopping power amongst other Terran carbines up to medium range. Now, Zoran the Bear actually put out a video earlier this week regarding the HC1 Cougar, and his impressions, I watched this video, it's about 10 minutes long. He does like the Cougar for its medium to semi-long range abilities. He said it doesn't seem to have the same stopping power one-on-one, and you want to use it when you're flanking people, taking people from behind. That's where it really seems to shine. It seems like a great weapon if you are a light assault player. I'm actually kind of excited for it as well. Been playing a lot of Engineer lately on Terran Republic, and I'm actually going to pick up the Cougar for the next time I play with the guys in Total Recoil, so I can really give it a push through. I've been using the links, and as we'll get further on in the patch notes, there have been some changes to the links itself. So next up, the Vanu also were given a new carbine. This would be the Zenith VX5. It, quote-unquote, uses advanced crystalline structures to significantly reduce weight without compromising on strength. It should have precision hip fire and increased movement speed while aiming. I did hear some people using the Zenith, very happy with it as it compared to some of the other weapons that, the other carbines that they were using. Again, I don't have much experience as a light assault player, but I do play a decent amount of Engineer. And lately I've been using the Serpent on my Engineer, and after playing around with the Zenith on the the VR training, I kind of liked how the Zenith shot, and I may need to spend a little more time actually using the Zenith compared to the Serpent. Next up, this is what really got snipers excited about the April 16th patch. Straight pull bolt attachments were finally released to everyone in-game. These are available on all of the sniper rifles, bolt action sniper rifles, that is. And really, they're only 100 certs. These, kind of in my mind, after using them, are pretty much a no-brainer if you're a sniper out there in PlanetSide 2. it just seems that if you don't buy this, I mean, I played around with the NC, and just being able to fire 6 shots without reloading, I was dropping people like crazy, headshot left and right, and straight pull bolt attachment. I almost feel that for 100 certs, it's too cheap. But as Raider X says, apparently a few of you wanted this released. So here it is. If you're a sniper player in PlanetSide 2, go out and play around with the straight pull bolt attachment. People will be sending you more hate tells than normal, and you'll be accused of hacking even more than normal. So enjoy your straight pull bolt attachments. Next up in the quality of life and balance, as I said, the Lynx was completely revamped for the TR. SOE felt that very few weapons were able to touch the Lynx's incredible rate of fire. It was going at 910 RPM, and it was tearing through infantry at close to medium ranges. They don't really explain what the changes to the Lynx were, but definitely if they've revamped it, I'm guessing it's a lot different than it was in the past. I haven't had a chance to play with it on live after this went to live, just because I've been using, like I said, I'm switching over to the Cougar to play with that for a while. But feel free to call in and give me hell for not knowing what the changes to the Lynx were. Some other changes that they threw in for quality of life and balance. The lifespan of the AV mana turret projectiles was reduced from 10 seconds to 4.75 seconds, which basically means the maximum range is now 450 meters. That should cut down on some of the issues where you weren't able to see who was shooting at you, specifically from the AV mana turret. I know that's a major complaint. So kind of making it closer to the targets that you're actually trying to hit. So you should see a few less of those long-range arcing shots coming out of nowhere and taking your tank in the rear and then you crying because you're dead. So next up, the amount of players' heads for NC and VS anti-infantry engineer turrets is now the exact same as the Terran Republic. Next up, we had some changes to the TR lockdown. The deploy times were reduced from 2.5 to now 2 seconds, which should make it easier for you to deploy and undeploy. Next up, Zoe actually got a change. We haven't heard Zoe talked about in a long time, just because I think the majority of the VS players, myself included, just don't even use it anymore. So now the max rank will now lower the resistance to small arms fire by 5% instead of 10%. So now you're looking at a reduction of 9, 8, 7, 6, and 5% across the board when you're inserting into Zoe. Next up, the Comet direct damage while under the effects of Zoe, they were increased from 347 to 375, and the maximum damage range and minimum damage range were both increased. It seems like Comet wasn't doing as much damage while in Zoe as they expected it to do. So that's it for the 2 different max suits. I notice there's nothing for NC. I guess your shield is balls, so why would you have to change it? So next up, and this is one that a lot of people were complaining, was knife damage, which had been reduced from 625 to 500. And I did see someone on the official PlanetSide 2 forums, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name, had posted a spreadsheet before and after with pistol shots followed by knifings. And now that there was a change reducing it down to 500 damage, it's taking sometimes more shots with a pistol, depending on the pistol, before you can knife somebody and kill them with your knife. But the reason that they made this knife damage change is the previous value was compensating for the old nanoweave functionality. This is where players could have up to 1,250 health, and that was high, because now you can only cap out with 1,000 health, not counting other abilities. So I think while some people are unhappy with the knife change because now it's taking more shots to shoot people before you can hit them that one shot with the knife and kill them. But looking at the reason why that was changed, I don't know that was really too bad of a change. All right, moving on to vehicles. And I'm sorry, this is a little bit of a patch that they put out this week. So All vehicles, nanite auto repair. Additional ranks no longer reduce the delay. Delay is now 12 seconds across all ranks. Night vision, it now has a longer range and brighter green. I'm not too sad about this because I felt that the night vision range had been scaled back a little bit too much, and so I run a lot of night vision on the majority of my vehicles, so I'm happy to have that back in. Flash stealth certification, it was reduced to 4 ranks like all the other vehicles. If you spent certs in flash stealth, you've had them refunded to you. And ultimately the benefit at max ranks for the new line still remains the same as the previous rank, but again, it's now 4 instead of 5 ranks. With the mag burner on your mag rider, they've increased the regeneration rate of lower ranks. So now it used to take at the lowest rank 60 seconds to regenerate to fully. Now it's down to 35 seconds, which is a decent change. I mean, it almost cut that number in half. The max rank was 20 seconds. That has not changed. So really only ranks 1, 2, and 3, you're going to see a change. And again, a lot of the max rank was almost, not max rank, rank 1 was almost cut in half. So if you're someone who uses Magburner, I think everybody who certs into a Mag Rider does, even if you have the lowest rank, you're going to be able to pop that a little bit more often to escape some of these dangerous situations. But still, you should not do what I watched a terrible Mag Rider pilot do last night when I was playing with Black Arrows. Try not to turn around and show the enemy Vanguard your rear as you're mag burnering away, because that thing lights up like a Christmas tree, and it's a huge target. That poor Mag Rider got blown to hell and back because they did just that, turn around to run away and pop their mag burner. Remember, Mag Rider strafe side to side. Use it. Next up, Vanguard shields. The amount blocked by the shield was reduced from 3,000 to 2,000 damage, and the duration has been normalized across all ranks to be 6 seconds. I heard a lot of complaints saying that you're taking away the I win button for Vanguard pilots. Honestly, I'm not too broken up by this change. I felt that the shield probably was a little too good in some instances, not every instance, because it didn't last very long. And a good counter Vanguard, if you're in a Mag Rider or a Prowler, you could certainly deal with the Vanguard shield. I don't think it was as much of an I win button as some people do think. So, lastly, Prowler, the anchor mode. The projectile speed is now normalized at plus 30% across all ranks. So again, all 3 of the main battle tanks got a little bit of a change. It looks like Mag Rider and Prowler got a little bit of a buff, while the Vanguard got a little bit of a nerf. Again, with the Vanguard, I'm more interested to see how it plays day by day, to see if it's too big of a nerf or if getting it down to 2,000 damage reduction is the sweet spot for the Vanguard shield. Lastly, for vehicle changes, harassers. Harassers got a little bit of love in this patch, and they've been kind of nerfed into the ground. We don't see nearly as many of them as we used to see a few patches ago, but stock armor damage reduction increased from 37 to 39%. Very slight increase. But this mostly makes some sources of damage less spiky, and most big hitting weapons will still destroy the harasser in the same amount of hits. They also increased the resistance to infantry small arms from 80 to 82%. And while the stock armor changes this, places the resistance to this type to 50% of the way back towards the PU02 value. So not much of a change, but again, I'm sure it's most likely for the same instances. They don't want it to be as spiky as it was. Next up, Turbo now consumes 50% less fuel when active, allowing for a much longer boost. Again, this is the pre-performance update 2 value, and I know that will make harasser drivers happy. And what's really going to make harasser drivers ecstatic is that Turbo is now standard on all harassers. give you a second to let that sink in. Everybody's getting turbo. Yay. Not only that, but it does free up the utility slot for other options. Raider X says that no, you still cannot add hydraulics, though. I know that's what some people are really looking for. Hydraulics and a bump and base system. The certification line still exists for turbo, but it's listed as a passive bonus. Next up, there was a little bit of vehicle weapon tuning. First up, the Basilisk. They felt the Basilisk was performing too well at longer ranges, so that minimum damage range and projectile speed had been reduced. Next up, the Cobalt. They don't feel it is as competitive as it should be compared to the other vehicle weapons. So it works well as a long-range anti-personnel weapon, but it really gives up a lot to do so. So they made some changes to improve that role and make it more effective against light armor. So, again, wasn't as competitive as they wanted it to be, so they've added some changes and now tear up that light armor. Next up, C85 Canister. They do still think that it could use some improvements to anti-personnel and anti-light armor, but they did remove the cone of fire penalty. They didn't change pellet spread. They changed some of the downward elevation on it. They increased the stock magazine size from 8 to 10. And with those changes, it's supposed to extend the range of two-shot kills by a few meters. They've also increased the headshot multiplier from 1.5 to 2. Leg shot multiplier decreased from 0.9 to 0.95. I didn't even know there was a leg shot multiplier, but apparently there is. The minimum damage range, it was increased from 40 meters to 42 meters. If you're using Harasser, that's only 30 to 31, a little bit less of a change. They lowered the ESF resistance to the canister. It went from 80 to 75, so a 5% increased damage that they're going to take from canister. And the Harasser resistance canister was lowered from 72 to 69%. So again, canister's also going to be doing increased damage to harassers, so watch out, harasser drivers. Next up, and the one I think I'm a little butthurt over most, is the Zoran. They felt it was too effective as an anti-infantry weapon. So to make changes to that, blast damage has now been reduced to make it require 3 direct hits to drop non-infiltrators instead of 2. And the inner blast damage radius was also increased. I really like my Zoran. And while I may not be a good gunner with the Zoran, sometimes I can't hit the broadside of the barn. I did appreciate the fact that I could snipe infantry with it. And I liked its role as an infantry sniping weapon. Because if you got somebody standing still, you should be able to take them out with a Zoran. I mean, it's a concentrated freaking beam of light, for crying out loud. I'm not happy with this change. I'm sure NC and TR players are ecstatic with the change, but I wish this had not been made to the Zoran. It was a very good all-around weapon, and I think adding additional damage, additional hits or whatever to kill infantry is kind of taking it away from being an all-around effective weapon and forcing me to choose something different. And I know you guys can crap all over me for that. I really liked my Zoran, and I'm sad about the changes. So, enough about the Zoran. How about changes to the Enforcer, the ML85? Too strong in the anti-tank category. So they reduced the magazine size, they increased the reload speed, decreased the ammo capacity, and also decreased the ammo capacity per rank. So Enforcer ML85 got a huge nerf. And again, they felt it was too strong in anti-tank. Next up, the Vulcan. And it's funny, I heard this complaint before the change was made. People felt that it was missing too many shots at long range. And sure enough, over 100 meters or 100 meters or greater, it was missing a lot of its shots. So that's changed by increasing the cone of fire sight range from 75 meters to 100 meters, making it should be able to hit better at 100 meters. So if you're a Vulcan user and you enjoy your Vulcan like I do playing on my Prowler, I guess you're a harasser too, but I expect more people to see the Vulcan doing better damage at longer range. Next up, Ranger. They want it to perform better, so flak damage has increased on this. Ammo capacity is being increased almost double. They've gone from 490 rounds to 800 rounds. And ammo capacity per rank increased from 16 to 70. So they're really adding a lot of extra ammo and extra damage to the Ranger to allow it to kind of last longer in battles and able to take down those pesky friggin' liberators that are hovering overhead. Next up, C-75 Viper on your Lightning. Too effective in both anti-tank and anti-personnel. They're toning it down in both aspects. Prowler, the Heat, double barrel, too effective against personnel. So they're reducing the blast damage from 700 to 650 damage. Inner blast damage has been reduced by half a meter. What this is going to do is it's going to reduce the effective 2-hit kill radius by half a meter. Now, this isn't the first time the Heat's gotten a nerf because it was too effective against personnel. It's going to happen. For the high explosive version on the Prowler, damage is too high. They're adjusting it dropping it from 700 damage to 650 damage. As for the high explosive, I expect it to be doing exactly what it's been doing. Really blasting those people who are camping around or hiding around in towers and stuff like that. But who am I to question too much? Because that's what the job is for the folks over at SOE, is to look at these weapons and see how they're doing with real life data and make changes like this. I haven't had a chance to roll in a Prowler in a long time. Maybe when I play with Total Recoil this Friday, I'll insist that I play with an armor squad so I can roll around the Prowler a little bit more, play around with this Heat and high explosive versions. But it is what it is. Next up, infantry weapon tuning with this patch. I'm not going to go into the whole thing because 32 different weapons were updated in this patch. If your weapon feels different, better, nerfed, it probably was, and you should probably check the patch notes to see what the changes are. Miscellaneous changes. The only one worth mentioning, the capture status for the current facility will now always show when a player is in the facility area, regardless of whether that facility is the player's current mission. I know this is the biggest complaint, is that the current mission would override the capture status in certain instances, and you couldn't tell what was going on with the base that you were at. So this is a needed and a happy change. Bugs fixed. They fixed some missiles fired from the AV mana turret not being visible to other players. Again, I think this coincides with the previous change that I talked about. Should make it less likely that an AV mana turret is not going to be seen by you when it kills you. Finally, Dalton and Zephyr now have different sound effects. I'm not sure if that's I'm assuming that's a different sound effect when it's firing, not when it's splattering me across the ground. That's it for the April 16th patch, but we do have a April 22nd patch. This is yesterday, and it was really just a new game client released. Should fix issues related to crashing while zoning. If you are still having issues, Higby wants to know about it. You can let him know. I will tell you that I updated the new game client last night. First attempt to launch the game after updating it, I was stuck at 94% and had to close the game out and start it up again. Second attempt to launch the game after updating it, I got a G29 error. If you didn't know, you can go right to the PlanetSide 2 forums and look up the errors that you get. Well, like I said, G29 error, it's not even listed. Apparently, I did a little more digging through that forum post and found out that a G29 means there's an issue connecting to the server and verifying your data. So that's what looks like my issue was. When I tried to launch the game a third time after closing that, worked without issue. And I've had no problems since that. So April 22nd patch, I did not crash while zoning. I wasn't crashing prior to the patch, but if you have been and are taking a break from the game because you've been crashing, unless you're playing on a European or Briggs server, try checking out that April 22nd patch and see if it fixes your issues. With that, those were the patches for the week. Let's move on to community briefing.
Attention, soldiers! Get your butts in here for this week's community briefing.
All right, first up in community briefing, there was a post on Reddit this past week, and the title of the post is "Prices in this game are too expensive." And this was by MKO Peck. I don't know who he is. I've never actually seen a post by him before, but basically he says, wanted to know if anybody else felt the same way. He doesn't mind spending cash on games, but he kind of feels that $7 to $10 for a helmet are a little expensive. $25 to $30 to buy a bundle to kit out a vehicle completely. He feels that it's just a little too much, and he'd prefer to see them decrease the prices a little bit. And he was also confused why members pay a monthly sub and don't get a discounted rate on any items. So first up, the discounted rate on items if you are a member is coming with the all access plan. So I want to remind people that if you're a member, upgrade now, that you will see a 10% discount on items that you purchase by being a member. Again, this is once the all access plan comes into effect. And we did see a post a few days ago by Smedley saying they're delaying it another week. It was supposed to be out today, but they're actually pushing it back another week because they want to get it 100% correct. So going through this Reddit post, I mean, there were a lot of responses to it, actually. And 382 upvotes to this. So a lot of people kind of agreed with what he was saying, that maybe it's a little too high. And imagine if things were only $1 or $3. Would it double or triple the number of people that are actually purchasing different things? I know, Torkz and Noxx will both rip me for this and call me a cheapskate. I am a cheapskate. I don't like spending $10 for a helmet because it's $10 for a hat. And I know a lot of people do it, and that's just the way of the game. But maybe it is time to rethink what some of the prices are in this game. And again, some people may come down hard on me saying, they've got to make money. They're a free-to-play game. And I understand that. So that's why I'm just giving my opinion that I feel like some of the prices are a little too high. Because personally, when I buy things in-game, it is almost always when they are on sale. I very rarely buy a full-price item. The only time I remember buying full-price items is after I had just cashed in on a double or a triple station cash, which we haven't seen in forever, and who knows when we'll actually see that in the future. But I think a lot of people in the game are probably like me and only buy things that are on sale. When the $1.99 99 station cash items came in during the couple times that they offered things like that, I bought every single item. Who cares if I wanted it or not? For one station cash, why wouldn't I? 99 station cash too. I bought all those things, and I think a lot of people did the exact same thing. Same thing when they did the 50% off sales in game. I bought a lot of things at that point because they were 50% off in game, and I think maybe that's the better price point for the majority of those items. I think $5 for a helmet makes more sense than $10 for a helmet. But again, I'm not the one in marketing determining how much money PlanetSide 2 needs to obtain to be a competitive game or not so much competitive game, but to be a game that continues and does well in today's day and age of free-to-play games. Now, that all aside, some interesting things that came up in this Reddit post was regarding how much people actually earn when these sales go into effect. So creators receive 40% of the net profits, according to Pterodactyl. But then there was some questions on what happens when an item goes down to 1 station cash or 99 station cash, something really cheap. And the consensus is that the creator still gets 40%, and SOE's profit is pretty much almost nothing. So I found that very interesting and kind of made me think twice about purchasing Player Studio items when they go on sale like that. I'm all for giving money towards the people who make stuff for Player Studio, but now I kind of think twice when SOE is getting a much smaller slice of the pie in cases like that. So again, I thought that was interesting, and I'll include a link to this in the show notes if anybody wants to go through and read this post. It's kind of large because there's a lot of people responding and a lot of back and forth with information and stuff like that. But again, I kind of echo MKOPEC's comments that prices may be a little too high, and maybe some of the listeners out there agree with me. If you disagree with me, that's fine as well. I know, like I said, I'm a cheapskate, and Torkz and Noxx will tell me so. All right, next up, let's take a few seconds and talk about Briggs. So if you don't play on Briggs, and instead you play on a U.S. server, or I guess this is sort of an issue for some of the EU servers as well. But this was a post by Squizzy. He actually posted this yesterday. He says, the Briggs server is failing. The community is falling apart. People are walking away in the hundreds. Maybe hundreds doesn't seem like a large number, but when you really think about the server sizes, hundreds of people walking away from the game is actually a lot. So this is just kind of a post by him saying, what the heck is going on, SOE? It's been a week since they've heard anything. Login issues are still going on. Server crashes are still going on. They're losing people left and right from this server. And the folks in Australia, where Briggs is centralized, which has an excellent community, they've got their own subreddit that's very strong. A lot of people are in that and active and have put a lot of money into the game, and they feel neglected at this point. Now, this post talks about, well, let's just merge Briggs with a U.S. server, Connery in specific. And I'm like, oh my God, don't do that on Connery, first of all. We have some decent populations there where sometimes you can't even get on the continent that you want to get on because there's so much going on. Imagine throwing in all of Briggs on there. The majority of people on Briggs are going to see a huge ping change by going from a local server to a California server, and that's going to make just an absolute mess on the server. So I hope they don't continue to talk about merging Briggs with somebody rather than trying to fix whatever the issues are. The problem is there's so little information out on it that no one really knows what the problem is on the Briggs server. Speculation is that it's the actual server that everything's being hosted on that is sending information to the U.S. servers, and it's kind of getting garbled in the middle somewhere. But again, there's no specifics on what the exact problem is on the Briggs server. So I think the biggest complaint right now is that the folks on Briggs are kind of in the dark. A lot of them are no longer playing the game, and I think it's kind of a disservice to those folks to not hear anything in over a week, except for the obligatory post from RadarX saying we're working on it, be patient. But I think Briggs folks can only be patient for so long before they just up and leave and go do something different. So if you don't play on Briggs and aren't experiencing the issues that they've experienced, and we've covered it a few times on this show, kind of be thankful that you're not dealing with some of the stuff that they're dealing with. And Briggs folks, my heart is kind of going out for you guys, and I hope things change sooner rather than later. Again, I'm just doing my part to bring the issues that you guys are experiencing to the rest of the community. Maybe some people can get behind you and put some more pressure on SOE to make a change and get this fixed for you guys. All right, let's move on to the community question from last week. So last week we asked, what would SOE have to do to get you to play on the public test server one night a week? The overwhelming response to this question was that people feel like it doesn't matter because the devs don't listen, and they cited Zoe as a prime example, changes being done to that. Other people suggested that the only reason you can get them to go to PTS is to make the server stable, because if you're not aware, a lot of the scrims and stuff like that happen on PTS, and it hasn't been the most stable thing recently. Next up, somebody suggested sharing assets from the currently downloaded games, so they don't need to download a 9 gig download every time that they want to play on the public test server. I think Noxx wrote this up, and he says that it's going to be impossible to manage that, so don't expect that to happen. But I think the most simple response that one person gave is, give us a 1-day XP boost for every hour that we spend there. And they've done it in the past, giving us, a 3-day XP boost for doing a huge test before Performance Update 1. Why wouldn't you do something else like that? It seems like a simple thing to throw to people, and you're going to know who's playing on the test server. I mean, the accounts are linked. So I do think that is probably the easiest and quickest way to go. Certainly look forward to any other comments regarding this on how you can get more people onto the PTS. But I think we can all agree that getting people on the PTS to test changes before they go live is definitely the way to go. And I know we know that SOE's listened to that because they've slowed down the amount of items that are getting released as a result. All right, I'm actually going to skip the community question this week to give Torkz and Noxx a chance to catch back up with me, and we'll run one next week. So that being said, really all that we have to move on to now is the good, the bad, and the OP.
Have another drink on me, soldier.
Okay, thank you kindly.
If you can look hard enough past all the death and all the sorrow, there are good things. You must remember that we will overcome. The good, the bad, and the overpowered.
So, like I said, unfortunately, my co-hosts, Torkz and Noxx, are not with me this evening. So you're just going to get my good and bad for this past week. So obviously my good, and it should be everybody else's good who's a member, double XP weekend. Played the hell out of PlanetSide 2 again, even though Diablo 3 has stolen my soul. Got in there, got some good kills, played all 3 factions, and got a number of battle ranks on all 3 of my main characters. So double XP weekend is definitely my good. My bad, though, I didn't realize that my subscription ran out. So I was playing a bit on Friday and not taking advantage of double XP. So that's shame on me. Didn't even notice it. And maybe it's just because I've come to ignore the upgrade now buttons because they're everywhere. But this was the time where the upgrade now button probably should have been flashing in my face, letting me know, hey, it's double XP weekend and you're missing out on it. So I did take it. I did go in and resub. So I am now back to being a paid member of PlanetSide 2 and getting my double XP. So those were my good and bad for the weekend, for this past week. Unfortunately, I don't have anything for the mailbag because Torkz is the holder of that email address. So anybody who did send things in, and I do know we got a couple hilarious calls this past week, those are going to be held until next week, and we'll go from there. So with that, I know it's a short show this evening because, again, this is a Deringer solo effort. So I guess I'll just end it with some quick thank yous. I want to thank everybody who had a chance to go on to Reddit and read the post that I actually made regarding the changes I'd like to see to Community Clash and specifically what we can do to observer cams to improve them, to make it more watchable, and things like that. I listed about 8 different changes I'd like to see come into the game that would make it better to watch. Just to run down my list real quickly, I want a night vision infrared given to the observer cams, first-person view given to observer cams, some static point cameras I'd like to see. I'd like to see enemy silhouettes when you're in a first-person cam. I'd like to see kill, death, and score per minute counters on the screen for all players. I'd like to see the accounts that have observer cam access given the ability to flip territory, given the ability to broadcast messages, and finally, I want you to be able to play your character on the Jaeger server, not a ComClash 01 through 048 character. So again, I wanted to thank everybody who took the time to go onto my post and reply. I appreciate everybody, and I did see that there was actually a response from Maggie saying that's a lot of the things that I talked about they are already working on. So I guess my final thank you is going to go out to I Like Deers on the PlanetSide 2 Reddit, who was nice enough to say that just because ReachCast is the longest running podcast doesn't mean that we're the most popular podcast out there. So again, I Like Deers, thank you. All right, with that, as always, our contact info at ReachCast is the website, reachcastshow.com. Our email is reachcastshow@gmail.com. As always, you can call us at 415-787-3224. Our Twitch channel, which we did not broadcast on this evening because it was just me, is twitch.tv/ReachCast. The show Twitter is at ReachCastShow. If you're looking for me specifically, you can find me at The Deringer. You can find Torkz at ReachCastTorkz. You can find Noxx at Noxxia, Noxxia. As always, I want to thank the rest of the ReachCast crew who you don't get to hear on the show. This would be Steve, Cliff, John, Jenny Boo, and Hamma. That's it for a Deringer solo episode. And next week, you should look forward to having all 3 hosts back and a roaring good time on episode 83 of the ReachCast show. This is Deringer saying good night and signing out.
That's right, Sergeant. You made the call.
All right, soldiers, you've done a great job here today. Let's get our stuff and get the hell out of here.